mentioned that people can't afford to work because of what's called the safety net. How do you wean people off of the safety net?
Yes. Add work requirements. That's the answer.
That's right.
So this shouldn't be a partisan affair. Actually, back in the 1990s, when Bill Clinton, a Democrat, and Biden voted for this at the time, reformed welfare to say that they attached work requirements. Those were more aggressive requirements than were actually proposed, but now called by Biden racist or whatever, to charge. Basics of if you're between the ages of 18 and 55, and childless, and you're able-bodied, then in order to get certain types of welfare or aid, you have to work at least 20 hours a week if you want more than 3 continuous months. It's not too much to ask. Even that is what now the modern left calls racist or oppressive or whatever. So yes, I think we have to bring work requirements back. And I want to say something about this because it's not just that I think it's unfair for the hardworking Americans to have taxes taken straight out of their paycheck and payroll taxes and income taxes to go feed somebody, to go feed the lethargy of countless other people who refuse to work. It's not just that's fundamentally unfair and it's anti-meritocratic. It's not just that this will also be what's needed to stimulate our economy. The reason this business, or others like it at least, will have a hard time finding new people to work is that we're paying people more money to stay at home. And that'll stimulate the economy if you add those work requirements. Not even just that. What do you think is driving this mental health epidemic across our country? Especially amongst young people. I'm part of a generation where a majority of people my age or younger, it's the first time in American history, have relied on their parents to provide their economic security blanket and a substitute for their salary. Why is that? It's not even good for the people who are supposedly helping. If you're 27 years old, sitting in your parents' basement, playing video games, smoking pot, that's not good for you either. And that's driving depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide. That's not compassion, that is cruelty. And so one thing we will end on my watch as your next president is, we will stop using our taxpayer money to pay people to do the exact opposite of what's actually best for them. Right now, we're paying single mothers more money not to have a man in the house than to have a married man in the house. And you know what I believe? The nuclear family isn't a bad word. It's the greatest form of governance known to mankind. Amen. We're paying people more money not to go to work than to go to work. Well, you know what? If you're hungry for purpose and meaning, going to work, having a job and earning money is part of how you fill that vacuum of purpose in your heart, too. We're paying people more money not to repay their student loans than to repay their student loans. Unfair to the people who worked hard and did it, but even a betrayal of teaching the next generation the wrong set of values, that you free ride on somebody else's hard work. I've been to the inner city of Kensington, in Philadelphia, in Kensington. The so-called aid programs to help people who are on drugs there involve giving them needles and crack pipes. That's not humane. That's not compassionate. That is cruelty. And so that ends on my watch as your next president. But it requires a president with the spine. Because in the short run, if you're taking away aid or adding conditions to aid, people have a negative reaction to that. But if you're actually saying, no, we're here to help you do what's best actually for you and for the country, that's the kind of president it's going to take to lead us, not just out of this economic malaise that we're in, but out of this deeper national identity crisis that we're in. We're in a national identity crisis. You ask people in my generation, in your generation, what does it mean to be an American today? You get a blank stare in response. It's like a deer in the headlights. That is the vacuum at the heart of our national soul. And it is our job to fill that vacuum with our own vision. This is why I say the Republican Party, we have grown lazy. I'll criticize the left. That part's easy. But let me say a word of discipline to our own party. We can't just criticize the other side for their vision without offering an alternative vision of our own. What do we stand for? Individual, family, nation, God. That
beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate if we have the courage to actually stand for something. So no, we can't anymore just be the party that is running from something. I am in this race to lead us to something. To our vision of what it means to be an American today. And if we can answer that question, that's how we dilute the rest of the poison to irrelevance. That is how we win. Take that question from you, sir.
I started substitute teaching in the school district here about, it was November 1st. And I substitute all ages, all groups. And grade school kids, they all stand up and say the pledge. Middle school kids, 90% of them stand up, say the pledge. The high school kids, barely half.
That's about right. That's what I've seen too.
And it just, I mean, look, to be honest, it surprised me that they were even doing the pledge. Because you just see, America's just been put down by the media so much.
And by our culture, and by our Department of Education, and by our universities, and by the broader national psychological mindset we're in. You're so right about that. Well, first of all, thank you for stepping up as a substitute teacher. We do have a shortage of teachers right now, and I thank you for doing what you're doing. I think we have a crisis of national pride in our country. There's no doubt about it. Less than 16% of Gen Z says they're proud to be American. 60% of Gen Z says that they would sooner give up their right to vote than to give up their access to TikTok, actually. That's where we are right now. So we're in a dire place. We have a 25% recruitment deficit in our U.S. military because young people don't want to serve a country they're taught to hate. I don't blame the next generation. I blame my generation and the rest of us failing to provide that level of example. Part of the problem is young people aren't taught about the country anymore. I think every high school senior, maybe suggest this at the high school, every high school senior should have to pass the same civics test that every immigrant has to pass in order to become a voting citizen of this country. You got to have skin in the game to play in the game. I don't think that's too much to ask. But I think this is also half the job of the next U.S. president. This is what makes being the president a little different than being a senator or a congressman. Where there, almost 100% of the job is policy. Are you setting the right policies? So be it. But when it comes to the presidency, half the job of the next U.S. president isn't just to set policy. It's to revive our national character, actually. To answer who we are as Americans. Reagan, when he left office in January of 1989, he gave a farewell speech that was one of the greats of all time. Think of all the things he could have picked. One of our greatest presidents. Getting us to the near end of the Cold War. Growing the economy, getting us out of stagflation. He didn't pick any of those things. The thing that Ronald Reagan picked, and he said he was most proud of when he left that White House, was that we revived our missing national character that we lacked when I first took office in '81. That's what he said. I think a lot about what do I want to tell you in January 2033 when we leave the White House. That's the destination. It's not November 2024. It's January 2033 when our family leaves that White House after 2 terms. What do I want to tell you that we actually did? I'll tell you we shut down the deep state. I'll tell you we grew this economy as a direct result of that. That we declared economic independence from communist China. That we stayed out of World War III. That we protected our own homeland and our own borders. I'll tell you all of that. But the most important thing I want to be able to tell you is that our 2 sons and their generation, that they are once again proud to be citizens of this nation. And I think it's been a long time, probably since Reagan, that we held our presidents to a high standard in that department. I want you to hold us. I say us, it's Apurva and myself both doing this together. My wife, she's a throat surgeon. She works at the cancer hospital at Ohio State. She saves lives every day. She's doing this with me. Was with me on the campaign events till 11 p.m. last night. She's doing this with me because this is about saving the life of our country. And I speak for both of us when I tell you this. I want you to hold us to a high standard where I want every parent in this country to look our country's sons and daughters in the eye and to be able to tell them in good conscience that I want you to grow up and be like them. And I think it's been a long time since we've had a president that we've held to that standard. So yes, I do think that we have an opportunity not just to implement the right policies, but to set the right national tone, the right national character for the next generation. And I'll use this as an opportunity to tell you about our faith as well. For those of you who aren't aware, my faith background is I'm Hindu. Slightly different than the traditional faith background of people who have run for U.S. president over the years, who've been Christian. My favorite president is actually Thomas Jefferson, not just because he was 33 when he wrote the Declaration, but he was actually a deist, actually. So not all of our presidents have been traditional Christians, but most have. But like Thomas Jefferson and like most of us in this country, we share the same values that this country was founded on. My faith teaches me that God puts each of us here for a purpose. That it is our moral duty to realize that purpose. That God works through us in different ways, but we're still equal. Because we're equal in the eyes of God. That's the heart of my faith. I'll tell you something, when I read the Ten Commandments for the first time, when I was in St. Xavier High School, Christian high school in Cincinnati where I went, it didn't feel like I was reading those Ten Commandments for the first time. Those are the values that this nation was founded on. We've made them unfashionable. There's one God. Don't take his name in vain. Observe the Sabbath. Honor your parents. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Don't steal. Don't kill. Don't commit adultery. Don't covet. One of the things I will say is it's my duty as your next president not just to get in there and shut down the deep state, and we will, but to make faith and family and patriotism and hard work cool again. I think we're pretty cool.
One last question.
One last question. Oh, we got so many. I'll go rapid fire and I'll take them together. How's that? I can't leave you hanging. Tell me.
Recently, there was a school shooting in Perry, Iowa.
Yeah,
I was wondering if you had any solutions to help suppress the mass incidents that happened in the United States.
I'll give you a brief answer to what could be a very long issue here. One is 3 armed security guards in every school across this country. Shut down the Department of Education. That's $80 billion. For a tiny fraction of that, 3 armed security guards in every school across this country ensures that what happened in Perry this week shall never happen again in this country. And I will deliver it. And the second thing is bring back the mental health institutions. The psychiatric hospitals that we closed in this country. That pharma lobbied for us to close so they could sell more of their blockbuster drugs. Bring back those mental health institutions. Put armed security guards in our schools. That's the right solution. And mark my words, there's going to be the standard siren song of infringing on Second Amendment rights. Don't fall for that. That's just a fake deflection. Get to the root cause, protect our children, and that's how we do it. Thank you, young man, for the question. You have one, then we'll give you the final word now.
Who do you think the puppet master is?
It's not one person, it's the machine.
And how do you break up BlackRock?
Well, you're getting pretty close to the target there in terms of what the puppet master represents.
And Vanguard.
BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, 3 firms that manage over $24 trillion of our money. That's more than the entire U.S. GDP. More than any other presidential candidate I've gotten a head start on breaking them up. I started doing it through the market. I don't know if you're aware of my background, but I started a firm called Strive that is the leading anti-ESG alternative to those kinds of firms. We crossed over $1 billion in assets under management a first year after launching the first fund. But the head of the snake is still the federal government. That's using these companies to do through the back door what they couldn't through the front door. I think it's the largest antitrust violation in human history. The largest shareholders of every company are BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. The largest shareholders of BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard are BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. Can't make this stuff up. It's the largest fiduciary breach in human history. And I think that it is also, you can make an argument it's a First Amendment violation because they're using state pension fund dollars, government dollars, to vote on your behalf in favor of policies that you disagree with. And so I wrote
a book about this. The title summarized, it's called Capitalist Punishment, laying out exactly how we're going to shut it down. That was the book that I wrote right before I ran for U.S. president. So you better believe that as your next president, I'm going to make sure that we aren't some sort of autocracy bowing to the kings of the woke industrial complex in Davos. We regain our sovereignty as United States of America and as citizens of this country. I've tried my best to do it through the market, and that's part of the solution. But part of this is shut down the deep state and the regulations that prop these people up, and that's how we end this. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. The book is all about this, too. What do you final word, man?
Thank you. I've reached out top level about what you're going to do with the border and our military and that sort of thing. So what is your plan for what you're going to do with who's already here?
Okay.
legally?
She gave me a hard one to finish with. Andy, do you have one to follow up there, sir? Go ahead.
It's about education.
Hey.
The university system is broken.
Yeah.
How can we fix it?
Yeah. Well, this goes back to the Department of Education shutting it down. Part of this is we're subsidizing somebody to be a 4-year gender studies major in California when somebody wants to be a welder or a mechanic or a carpenter, doesn't have that same level of support. And we actually have a labor shortage in this country. And so I favor, first of all, for those for whom college 4-year education is the right path, bring down the cost by gutting the bureaucracy in the universities. What's driven up the cost is the proliferation of these administrators. One university, Purdue, that hasn't done that, its tuition has remained flat over the last 15 years. Not like inflation adjusted flat, flat. So that shows you it's just from the fat that we put in.
Yep.
A lot of that comes from the Department of Education. Shut that down, put the money in the hands of parents and teachers, and focus more on vocational education and paths to the American dream that don't involve 4-year college degrees. That, I think, is a good way to go. Now, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's just hard truth, and it's obvious. It shouldn't even be partisan. Both parties should support it, and I'll lead this country to make sure we get there. You asked a hard question. I told you to ask hard ones, so thank you. So we have a clear plan to seal the border. I told you militarizing the border will end federal aid to Central America until they build their own border walls all the way from Venezuela to the northern border of Mexico. We'll end federal funding for sanctuary cities. We're not going to use our money to pay for breaking the rule of law. But for the people who are already here, there's 2 things where I go further than every other Republican. One is we will end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegal migrants in this country. It does not apply to them, and we have to stand for it. And the second is anybody who is in this country illegally will be returned to their country of origin. That's the only right answer. Now the question is how. Because there's only 6,000 ICE agents. This is where they, and in so many ways, and I want to tell you about this in a second too. I think they duped Donald Trump. He had the right intentions, they duped him. They said you need a constitutional amendment to end birthright citizenship. No, you don't. Read the Constitution. The 14th Amendment absolutely does not apply to illegals. They duped him. They said we only have 6,000 ICE agents, so we can't go after the millions who are already here. Read the law. The law already allows ICE. It's called 287G is the section. It allows ICE to delegate their warrant service power to local law enforcement, of whom there are 1 million in this country. All it takes is a president with an understanding of the law and the Constitution and the spine to see this through. That's how we'll deal with it. That's how I can't be a father of 2 sons in the White House, telling them they have to follow the rules, when the government that I'm leading isn't following its own rules. That's shameful, and I'm going to put an end to it on my watch. And I will close with this, because you do have a choice to make, and it relates even to questions like yours, of why we haven't gotten this done yet. I respect the heck out of Donald Trump. I've been clear about that. I've given him more respect than anybody else in this race, and I think it's the right thing to do for our movement. He kept us out of wars and grew this economy, and he deserves credit for that. I've done my part to say I'd remove myself from the ballots from Maine to Colorado voluntarily if they remove him in the way that it seems like they're planning to. And I call on every other Republican to do the same thing. And I'm ashamed that the others couldn't step up and do it. But as you all have a choice to make in about 10 days, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. If you think they're going to let this man get anywhere near that White House again, I'm going to ask you to wake up. These people are going to stop at nothing. I mean nothing. To keep this man away. They made that crystal clear. And we can't fall into that trap.
Our America First movement is bigger than one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump, just as it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, to us, to we the people in this country. It didn't start in 2016. It started in 1776. We're 250 years in. We have another 250 years and then some yet to go. So we have an obligation to this country to do the right thing, not to fall into the trap that they have laid. We love the man because he got this fight started, but now it is our job to finish it. You got the future of America First standing right here. This is going to take somebody with fresh legs. Somebody who has not yet been wounded in this war. And make no mistake, we are in a war in this country. Between those of us who love the United States of America and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for. Between the permanent state, the managerial class, inside and outside government, and the everyday citizen. And we need now more than ever a commander-in-chief who will lead us to victory in this war. A commander-in-chief who can't be captured by the special interests. And now more than ever, a commander-in-chief, I believe, from the next generation to reach and lead the new generation of Americans. So if you all do your part, and that's what I'm asking you for, every one of you, 30 minutes of your time on January 15th to come to that Iowa caucus. The week between now and then, tell 10 people you know in this community about what we talked about here. Bring them too. If you all do your part, I promise you, my family and I, we will do ours to make sure that our country's best days are actually still ahead of us. That we will look our kids in the eye and tell them and mean it. That the United States of America is still the nation where no matter who you are, or where your parents came from, or what your skin color is, that you will get ahead in this country with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication, and that you know what? You are free to speak your minds at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what I am here to lead us to. And with your help, that is what we will revive to save this great nation. Thank you for coming today, guys. God bless you.